Greetings and salutations, you insipid half-wits. It is I, Professor Lunatic, and I have taken over this pathetic excuse for a YouTube channel so that I may show you the horrors that the world of animation can bring. Oh yes, while you may think of cartoons as little more than lovey-dovey bullcrap that teaches children the values of such things as kindness and tolerance, the truth is that some of the most depraved, demented imagery to ever be spawned from humanity have come from the minds of animators. That is why I, Professor Lunatic, will be spending the next month subjecting you to some of the most horrific cartoons to ever be spawned from the Inkwell. Welcome to the first edition of Inkwell Insanity!
The Minotaur's my butler, the Cyclops my valet, a centaur tries my chariot that takes me down the way. A river made of fire, through a street that's paved in bones. I got a dozen zombie skeletons to walk me to my throne. In the land of the dead, heck boy ain't it grand. I'm the overlord of the underworld, 'cause I hold horror's hand. In the land of the dead, I'm dark side royalty. I'm far renowned in the underground, and you can't take that away from me. No, you can't take that from me.
And for those of you who are wondering where your precious Alex is, worry not. I have put that wretched plebeian back in his place by torturing him with the most sadistic tool imaginable. Yes, I am about as surprised as you are that the most effective way to distract Alex is to plop him down in front of a game of Skyrim. He has a sickness. But enough about Alex. Let's set our focus on the first subject of our terrifying little odyssey, the SpongeBob SquarePants episode, Fear of a Krabby Patty. Oh yes, I bet you didn't know that this saccharine series, featuring an obnoxiously happy kitchen sponge who cooks burgers and sings about the joys of having innocent fun, has its fair share of ghoulish stories to tell. But it does, and I'm here to guide you through this one. Let's get started. Our episode begins at the Krusty Krab, the quaint little fast food restaurant that our gremlins work at. Things seem to be going alright, with the place being packed with mindless drones, and its money-hungry crustacean owner, Mr. Krabs, taking up painting as a hobby. I'm glad that we both share a love of painting. I just hope that his paint was taken from fresh materials, if you know what I'm saying. Mr. Krabs walks over to his employees and shows them the painting he's just finished, which is a sign advertising their new hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. His lousy grouch of an octopod named Squidward is horrified by this idea, calling it unfair like the obnoxiously unruly peasant he is, while SpongeBob agrees, though not for the reason you may think.
Squidward's right. That's totally unfair. Couldn't we get to work earlier than 6 a.m.? Like 5:30 a.m.? Or 5 a.m.? Or 4 a.m.?
Ah, now there's a worker that a maniacal genius like myself can truly appreciate. Stupid, obedient, and loyal. As Mr. Krabs goes to place his sign at the front window, he gasps in shock upon discovering that his eternal rival and entrepreneurial competitor, the delightfully devilish microorganism named Sheldon J. Plankton, has placed a gigantic sign outside of his restaurant informing his customers that it'll be operating for 23 hours. Refusing to take this affront to his character, Mr. Krabs announces to
to everyone in the Krusty Krab that his restaurant is now open for 24 hours. His employees take the news exactly how you would expect them to.
Did you hear that, Squidward? We get to keep working and working and working without ever having to go home.
It's quite enjoyable as a master of evil to see Nickelodeon teach its young viewers that the only way to succeed in their miserable little lives is to become a slave to their corporate overlords.
After an unnecessarily long scene of SpongeBob pinching himself that I'm going to be skipping because even I have standards, we cut back to the outside of the chum bucket, where Plankton has been observing Mr. Krabs' actions through his telescope. He then chuckles maniacally and explains to the audience, because who else could he be talking to right now, that Krabs fell right for his trap. See, the chum bucket isn't actually going to be open for 23 hours. Plankton just said that so that his enemy would feel compelled to keep his restaurant open forever, which will soon leave his employees so exhausted that he'll be able to extract the secret formula to their signature menu item from them.
Why, a plan this evil deserves a toast. To Plankton, the destroyer of small-time businesses! When I put it like that, the plan doesn't sound that dastardly.
Back at the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs rings a cowbell to commemorate the third straight day of his restaurant being open for 24 hours. But the oblivious masses care for little more than consuming their unhealthy slop. Everyone seems fine with this new schedule until day 10, when an exhausted Squidward begs his superior to go home.
No one goes home! Look at these bags under my eyes! Even my bags have bags! Quit your belly aching, Squidward. You don't hear SpongeBob complaining, do ya?
Krabby says I.
You could learn a few things from that boy.
Yes, Mr. Krabs, break his spirit by reminding him that even if he were given a reprieve from his slave labor, he would still have to deal with SpongeBob.
Mr. Krabs, he is not normal.
What? You mean to tell me that you want your restaurant to follow basic health and safety regulations? That's it! You've earned yourself 20 minutes of electrocution!
Mr. Krabs, being the easily swayed dunce that he is, grants his cephalopod worker a brief 5-minute amnesty, after which he immediately collapses to the floor. Just then, a disguised Plankton rappels down from the ceiling and once more exposits to the audience about his evil plan.
Drat! He's not collapsing from exhaustion, but with a little more pressure, the sponge will crack like an egg. Then I'll be there to feast on the goo of his shattered psyche.
Far be it for me to ruin another evil genius's evil plan, but does nobody else in this restaurant even notice Plankton? He's dangling from the kitchen window and doesn't seem to be using his inside voice whatsoever. You mean to tell me that SpongeBob, as aware and lucid as he seems to be, doesn't notice his boss's nemesis monologuing just a foot or two away from him?
It just raises too many questions.
A spider bug.
Man, it is quite fortunate that Mr. Krabs just happened to come by at the right time and squish what he thought was a bug, because otherwise Plankton might have given himself away with his loud-ass evil laughter.
We cut back to the chum bucket, where Plankton sets in motion the next phase of his evil scheme, placing a ridiculously large order of Krabby Patties that SpongeBob will be forced to cook over the phone, which will no doubt leave him as physically and emotionally drained as Squidward.
And being the evil genius he is, Plankton has no doubt concocted the perfect alias to use for this little endeavor, hasn't he?
Krusty Krab, the restaurant that never closes. You'd like to place an order? 10,000 Krabby Patties? We'll start your order right away, Mr. What was that name again? Peter Langton.
You know, I'm starting to think that Plankton isn't as smart as he's letting on.
Of course, being a bigger idiot than his rival, Mr. Krabs takes Peter Langton's assurance that this isn't a plank phone call for granted, despite his voice sounding identical to Plankton's, and runs off to the kitchen to hand SpongeBob his newest assignment. Our hapless fool is giddy at the prospect of working himself to the bone, and we cut to a montage of the passing days at the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs and the other employees get progressively more tired and crazy, while SpongeBob begins to lose count of how many Krabby Patties he's actually made. After the montage, we cut to Mr. Krabs standing in the middle of his restaurant, where he asks if anyone knows how many days it's actually been since he started this doomed endeavor. Squidward tells him that it's been 43, and the sorry state he's in gives way to the mess of mangled hamburgers SpongeBob is making right beside him. The sight disturbs Mr. Krabs, who heads into the kitchen to investigate. There, he sees his fry cook literally spaz out, and after smacking him back to reality, he tries to talk some sense into him. However...
Oh, hey, Mr. Krabs. When did you get in here?
Boy, I'm worried that... Got it?
I'm sorry, Mr. Krabs. Could you run that by me again?
Sure. I said I'm worried that...
That's what I thought you said. Now let me offer this as a rebuttal.
Yes, countless days of being made to do nothing but cook Krabby Patties has driven SpongeBob completely mad, and he's now begun to see his boss as nothing more than an anthropomorphic burger out to vor him. Mr. Krabs tries to walk up to him and set him straight, but his paranoid employee runs out into the restaurant and tries to escape the building. However, his eyes perceive the customers of the Krusty Krab as little more than murderous burgers themselves, which does lead to one humorous interaction.
That shirt was hideous.
She's right, random stranger. No self-respecting man puts on a purple button-up shirt.
SpongeBob continues to scream in horror about his delusions, at which point Mr. Krabs grabs him and hauls him back to the kitchen, which leads to another humorous moment, although I'm not quite sure I meant to be laughing here.
Come on! With the way the voice actor delivered that line, how was I not supposed to find that hilarious? Plus, I'm an evil bastard, so I was going to find this turn of events amusing regardless.
Back in the kitchen, a cowering SpongeBob asks his boss what's wrong with him. Mr. Krabs tries to assure him that getting back to work will cure his dementia, but as soon as he shoves a stack of hamburger patties in his fry cook's face, he begins screaming, which convinces Mr. Krabs that the problem is a lot more serious than even he thought.
What does this mean?
It means there's something wrong with your head. Look, I think maybe you should see a professional.
Wrestler?
No!
I've always appreciated the ability of the old writers of SpongeBob to throw in jokes that actually add to my enjoyment of the show rather than take away from it.
Mr. Krabs clarifies to SpongeBob that he's gonna be sending him to a psychiatrist, and right when the fry cook asks where in the world they're going to find such a person, a flyer folded up into a paper airplane just so happens to smack him right in between his eyes. After a quick shot of Plankton looking over the kitchen window, because I guess the writers didn't want to be too clever and let the audience figure things out for themselves this episode, SpongeBob takes out the flyer and unfolds it. Reading it, he discovers that it's an advertisement for one Dr. Peter Langton, a local shrink who specializes in Krabby Patty phobias.
One would wonder why SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs aren't immediately made suspicious by the fact that this psychiatrist just so happens to share the same name as the man who just ordered 10,000 Krabby Patties from them, as well as the fact that he just so happens to specialize in treating Krabby Patty-related phobias. One would also wonder why nobody has noticed that Plankton is clearly peering over the kitchen window. Come on! How am I supposed to be scared when none of these plot points make any goddamn sense?
SpongeBob is initially hesitant to schedule a visit because it means he'd have to miss work, but a simple flash of a hamburger patty is enough to send the porous abomination fleeing.
Well, this looks like the place.
The office literally stands where the chum bucket stands, and that sign was so obviously hastily put together. I don't care how sleep-deprived SpongeBob is. There is no way that he wouldn't be able to tell that something is off about this. My God, how does Alex deal with writing this stupid?
Ugh. Anyways, SpongeBob steps into the Dr. Langton's office, and after asking if anyone's around, the good doctor, who's totally not Plankton in disguise, invites him to sit on his sofa. Once he does, Dr. Langton assures him that he'll unload all of the disturbing information in his client's head, and after SpongeBob makes a really dumb dad joke, the following exchange occurs.
Do you think there's hope for me, Doctor?
Hope? Hope? When I get my hands on that formula, there won't be any hope for any of you. I mean, you'll be cured in no time.
How are you falling for Plankton's obviously evil scheme? He is breaking character so badly that he might as well be wearing a t-shirt that says, "I am your nemesis." God, it's no wonder that Alex takes forever to make these little reviews. Every scene of the bad cartoons that he talks about has like 5 minutes worth of bullshit that needs to be unpacked.
Dr. Langton first has SpongeBob close his eyes and tell him what he sees, to which SpongeBob explains that he sees nothing but Krabby Patties. When Dr. Langton tries to get him to reveal what his imaginary foes are made out of, SpongeBob gets scared by his delusions and smashes him over the head with a piano. This failure prompts the good doctor to try another psychiatric method, which is to say a word related to Krabby Patties and then have SpongeBob speak the first word that comes to his mind upon hearing said word. This, however, goes about as well as you'd expect.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Work.
Work.
Spatula.
Spatula.
Bun.
Bun.
See, the key is to say something different than what I said.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Potato.
Potato.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Next, Dr. Langton gathers cards displaying common kitchen ingredients and asks his client to arrange them in any order he pleases, only to not so subtly push him into arranging them into the Krabby Patty secret formula. SpongeBob warns him that he can't do his task with Dr. Langton standing there, and the good doctor respects his wishes by returning to his chair. The moment he does, however, SpongeBob informs him that he's finished, and he runs back only to once again be squashed by a piano that SpongeBob had built out of the cards. With all other options exhausted, Dr. Langton decides to hypnotize SpongeBob by lulling him to sleep with a pocket watch, and then having him reveal the secret formula to Langton when he wakes up. The first part of his plan goes off without a hitch, much to the good doctor's surprise, but as for rousing him awake...
Hey, wake up! What else is loud and obnoxious? Why won't you wake up?
Oh, Plankton, you fool! If you had wanted SpongeBob to wake up, then you should have shown him this!
Mama. Mama. Mama.
We crossfade into SpongeBob's subconscious, where he's at first joyfully chasing jellyfish through the fields before he gets caught, and then gobbled up by a Krabby Patty. He then gets teleported to his bed at home, only to see his bedroom door slowly creak open. Upon seeing that his uninvited guest is yet another Krabby Patty, he begins to cower in fear. But then...
Hey, SpongeBob. I heard your brain was sick, so I brought you this cookie pizza.
Gee, thanks.
And here's some chocolate milk.
Don't ask how I made either of these things within the confines of your mind. It was, not a pretty process.
The king of flavored dairy drinks. Oh, Krabby Patty, I'm so glad we're friends again.
How nice of SpongeBob to teach its young viewers that the quickest way to win back your friends' love and affection is to bribe them with sugary confectionaries.
Just remember, SpongeBob, I'll always be with you. Right here.
In my heart.
Actually, in your arteries.
Is this a joke about how SpongeBob is going to die of diabetes from all of the burgers that he consumes? Or a ham-fisted attempt to teach kids about basic human biology? You make the call.
The Krabby Patty tells SpongeBob to wake up, which of course brings us back to the Chum Bucket, where Plankton has been screaming at him to wake up with a megaphone. SpongeBob finally regains consciousness and happily announces that he's been cured of his fear of Krabby Patties. Dr. Langton tries to ask him about the formula for this prized menu item, but SpongeBob only takes this as a reminder that he needs to go back to work, which leads to this scene.
Thanks for everything, Doc.
No, it's a lie. Therapy doesn't really work. You're still sick. Very, very sick.
Damn right, writers. Therapy is little more than a psyop conducted by pseudo-intellectuals so that they can milk thousands of dollars from honest, hard-working Americans. Why, I refused to go to therapy, and look how I turned out. I am the poster child of good mental health. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to stop my 7 different personalities from arguing over the possession of my girlfriend by shooting myself in the stomach.
Good to see your brains all fixed, boy.
Yep, I just needed some sleep is all.
Well, I can safely say no more 24-hour shifts. This 23 hours will be plenty.
Oh, Mr. Krabby.
No, seriously. Get back to work.
It's good to see that this episode ends by reinforcing the same message that it taught young viewers at the beginning, which was that no matter what, the most important goal in your life is to submit yourself completely to the whims of your corporate overlords. It really helps distract from how mediocre the rest of this episode has been.
Yes, to my surprise, this episode was not quite as good as I thought it was going to be. I suppose that the premise is rather unique, and the writers do pack quite a few solid jokes into it, but the characters being unbelievably oblivious to Plankton's overtly evil scheming really killed the mood for me. Perhaps if the writers had made the characters act in accordance with the state they were in throughout this episode, I would have enjoyed it so much more. As is, though, it's a lackluster, if inoffensive, start to the show's 4th season.
Okay, so our first installment was a bit of a dud, but worry not, you insatiable mongrels. For our next installment, we will be taking a trip to the suburbs of Elwood to see what horrors are encountered by the anthropomorphic animals that live there. Until then, I have been Professor Lunatic, and I wish nothing but misery and death upon you witless peasants.
Cyclops my valet. A centaur tries my chariot that takes me down the way. A river made of fire, through a street that's paved in bones. I got a dozen zombie skeletons to walk me to my throne. In the land of the dead, heck boy ain't it grand. I'm the overlord of the underworld, 'cause I hold horror's hand. In the land of the dead, I'm dark side royalty. I'm far renowned in the underground, and you can't take that away from me. No, you can't take that from me.